All right. All right. Welcome
Sorry, I
to
don't know what happened to the intro music.
very first. It's our very first one. We can make mistakes on this one. This is when we make the mistakes, guys. I don't have a very cool graphic to put up quite yet because this was literally put together within what, 5 days, maybe. So we don't have the music, we don't have the graphics, but I'm glad that you guys are out and hopefully watching this and just watching to see how we can possibly. Is that enough?
I found it.
Thank you. We already started though, right?
Oh yeah, no, we're live.
Very cool. Well, that's what happens when we go live, right? So I appreciate anybody out there watching, the two people that would watch me and spend time doing such a crazy thing. Do not fix your screens quite yet. We are missing Miss Mary Lupin, who tends to be late. She said I can trash her all I want. I'm not going to trash her. We're here to talk about bridges and coming back together as a people, and that's what I'm all about, is trying to bridge that gap. And with me right now is Mr. Jonathan Harden. If you do not know, Jonathan Harden is actually my legislative assistant for City Council. I am currently on City Council. I haven't been kicked off quite yet. They've tried it though, but hasn't worked. I've got Jonathan here, who is running one of the how many candidates?
There's 19
candidates for 5 positions.
5 positions, yes.
For 5 at-large positions. What the at-large means is that we have 9 total people sitting on the Rochester City Council, and 4 of them represent a district, right? So I represent the Northwest, and we got 3 other people who represent other districts. Mary Lupin, who represents the South districts. But there's 5 at-large, which means that they represent the entire city. So they must be so well-rounded that they can appeal to the very masses out there. And I want to give my assistant here. I'm playing some personal favors here for Jonathan, because him and I, they. Do you have a pronoun? Do you care about
Him?
All right. Him and I. There's not many things that you and I really agree on. I think people have us misconstrued that you are like I wouldn't say a mini version of me, because I'm the mini version. You are another version of me, and I that boggles my mind. So speak on that, Mr. Harden.
I'm just neighborhoods, and have been involved in the neighborhoods long before I met you through the neighborhood associations.
That's right, CCA.
Working in neighborhood associations from Plex to North Winton to Charlotte. But yes, I am more liberal to you, and sometimes cringe when I read things, but I'm stick to constituent services and just working in the neighborhoods and making sure that they have everything that they need.
Absolutely. Actually, we got to, there's one thing that I want to make sure everybody knows who's watching this. My big thing is when we're discussing any topics, I like to share a drink with the person that I am discussing. I don't want to say hard topics, but I feel as though these are topics that people are afraid to talk about with their friends. So let's open up the drinks that actually Mary Lupin had picked out for us. We're not going to say what it is, but I'm sure you'll see it. Open that up there. He's afraid to open it. So
I have one too.
And yep, there we go. And once Mary comes in, I shook hers up pretty nicely.
Or Mary.
But my big thing is always being able to discuss issues with people and not being afraid that they're going to try and cancel you. They're going to try and go after your job, go after your family, just hate you because of how you were raised. And that's my big thing, because I was not raised the same as you, I'm sure. And that's what I want to know right now. Tell us about Mr. Jonathan Harden. How were you raised? How did that raise create the man you are today? Because you're not from up here, as you can maybe tell from the accent. So where are you from, and how were you raised, and how did that influence who you are today?
Grew up in Central Mississippi. My grandmother raised me the majority of my life. They had a
grandma.
They had a country store, and the vast majority of the things in that country store they would give away. They never made money on anything.
Not very good capitalists.
No,
okay,
not at all. Because they saw the importance of helping each other, and there were a lot of kids. My grandmother was one of 16, so she was used to cooking large meals and preparing for everyone, and anyone could stop at our house and eat if they needed to eat, is the way she operated. And that's kind of, led over to me in volunteer service. That was a big thing in high school, college. I've always been a volunteer in my neighborhood associations, and started here when we moved here 10 years ago this summer in Highland Park, just going to their functions, going to their events, purchased a house in Charlotte, and stumbled into being president of the association.
So that's why you're liberal then. You're from the Highland Park area.
Everything,
Nothing against liberals.
everything in our everything in our research told us that we needed to live in South Wedge, and actually rented a house in
Makes sense.
Highland by accident because we didn't know it was one street over.
Wow. So the big thing you brought up that really connected with me, because I know Jonathan personally, so there's going to be some biasness here, and I know Mary Lupian very closely as well. You're super actively involved in not just your neighborhood association in Charlotte, but didn't you like help something with many neighbors building neighborhoods?
Yes, we created many neighbors building neighborhoods because we would go to city council and notice that city council was not paying us any attention.
This is prior to me, by the way.
This was 2016 we started. 2015 we had some hot topics with that council. No one would pay any of us any attention. So all of the leaders of the neighborhood associations got together and we said, let's form a coalition of neighborhoods so our voices could be heard louder. But still, with this government, we find issues with it. In 2017 or 2018, I can't remember the exact year, 44 neighborhood associations and block clubs went to city council asking that they not build in our parks in Cobbs Hill. And the vast majority of the council ignored the neighborhood associations.
Which is crazy to me, because I'm a firm believer that if you want something in a neighborhood, the neighborhood association is the voice for that neighborhood. When they speak up, their voices should be heard. They should be heard loudly to the city council. And I understand that there's obviously something there where we have to take care of the city funds as well. We got to make sure that the tax base increases, the tax revenues increase. We do need to take a look at that. But I am a firm believer that when the neighborhoods speak up, and I even did this, and many of you know, I wouldn't say I'm pro police, but I'm very much pro law enforcement. Being raised in the family I was raised in, I believe that the enforcement law is exactly what it should be. We got the Honorable Mary Lupian has graced us with her presence now. We're talking about neighborhood associations speaking up. No, I distinctly remember you being fully active in that, and the fact that it seemed as if the city administration just straight turned their back on the city neighborhoods there. It was very sad to see, and it's one of the reasons why I got involved, because I was tired of seeing the city administration turn their backs on our neighborhoods. Mary Lupian, how are you?
Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah. Put it. Yep. Bring it up close to So I was asking Jonathan how his upbringing created the person he is today, and I think a lot of people want to hear your upbringing as well, and what made you the person you are today. What was that deciding factor? What pushed you to be the Mary Lupian council member that you see today?
Sure. Thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Absolutely.
I've actually thought about it a lot. I think maybe the average person doesn't give a whole lot of thought into how they developed into who they are. But I was part of a group called Mothers Out Front that really invested in its folks and helped develop them as leaders. And in part of that was developing the story of self. So in that process, I really went back and realized that the seed for me started very early when I saw things in the world that weren't equitable, especially in other countries. And I wrote this poem about it. And, it was all about how terrible it was and how we couldn't do anything about it. And my mom was actually the one who said, actually, we can do something about it. And so I think that's where it started, just really the idea that we could affect change. And then, my story, my dad his career was in the Boy Scouts. And so not many professional Boy Scouts, but he was a
Right.
scout
I've never heard of such a
executive.
thing. That's
I mean,
amazing.
somebody's got to run the organization,
It's
right?
true. It's true.
Yeah, he actually started in when we were kids in Pennsylvania, and then ended up running the Boy Scouts in Vermont, the whole state.
Jeez.
So he had 2 girls, and he was this big Boy Scout leader. So we kind of grew up with that ethic and understanding that service was really important. And so did a lot of community service through that. And then in college, things like Habitat for Humanity, and I got involved in, packing food bags. But it wasn't until a little bit later that I kind of understood the difference between charity and justice. And a lot of what I had been involved in was charity, which is, very well intentioned and important, giving of resources to people who don't have them. But what I came to understand is that charity doesn't require the giver to change anything about themselves or the way that they're living.
Okay.
And when we understand justice, that involves all of us to understand our impact on the community and how the way that we're living our lives impacts how other people are living their lives. And I see kind of from your face that might be a little bit of a difference of opinion there. And I think
that's what we're here for. We're
right?
here for the differences of opinion.
Right.
That's literally what this entire thing is all about. Is normal conversations here.
And I think, my father, I'll say, is a Republican and a Trump supporter.
I did hear that. So how were you not raised that way?
Well, I was.
Okay.
I was.
So is that the where you said, you got to see that in college where it kind of changed your mind? Or when did that?
So in college, I don't believe I was registered Republican. I think I was an independent, but I did vote for Bush twice. And being raised Catholic, you're kind of really brainwashed into one issue voting, and that issue would be abortion.
Right.
And we're kind of taught that nothing else matters as much. And I had doubts about voting for Bush, especially the second time. And I think it was, after 9/11 and saw the war that we started, that I really kind of understood that, wait a second, we're putting all this effort into, protecting unborn children. However, the children that are here aren't being protected. And I kind of understood that I wanted to put my energy into preventing the things that would cause someone to get an abortion. So there's a high, and I'm definitely like a pro-choice. It's your body, you choose, but there's still part of me that knows that that's a potential life. And I don't think there's many like pro-abortion people out there. It's just that they want people to have a choice. And I want to create the kind of world where someone doesn't feel like they have to make that choice.
Yes, I feel as though a lot of people would bring up the fact that they had a choice when they got into the bed, right? Is that what you want to change, or where is it that you see the change could be held? And this is a very overwhelming topic on so many levels. Yeah, this is not city-based, but as we see, there's people from all over the world that watches this channel, and I want to make sure that every voice is heard. So when it comes to abortion, and this is something that I agree with you, because I was raised I went to church 3 times a week. I also went to school at the church that I went to. So I was
Catholic school all 12 years.
What about you, Jonathan?
In college, I volunteered with Planned Parenthood. One of my best friends was the vice president of Planned Parenthood for Mississippi, Alabama. And so I'm very much in the column of I'm a man, and I have no say on it. Especially as a gay man.
I'm not okay with that.
I
want to say
that's a woman's choice.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
but we do have to pay.
But I saw how hard they're on the ground and working.
Right or wrong?
Well, in custody cases and legal cases now, it's either spouse can be paying child support.
True.
But I'm just under that mind frame of, unless I'm in that decision, it's not my body. And seeing how hard my friend Felicia had to fight in Mississippi and Alabama, I totally turned that over.
Gotcha. I'm pretty big supporter of men, not against women, just a supporter of men. And I think there's a lot of men out there who would rather have kept the child, but it is a woman's body. So it's like one of those topics that's like, I don't want to say there's no right or wrong answer here, but there is there is
There's so many
wrong.
avenues you can go down, and there's so many
Right.
avenues that I looked at. That little kid in foster care who was at one of our programs at Edgerton, and just hearing his story and having him hang around me, and I'm like, there's so many people worried about abortion, but there are not so many people worried about all those kids that are in foster care.
That is the hard truth. We have so many kids who are ready to be taken on. Pop that open. I shook it really hard for you too.
I'm gonna
No.
enjoy it off camera.
There you go. There's no judgment here, by the way. We're not allowed to judge.
See, here's the thing though, is that I went through a program called Women Elect,
Okay.
and it trains women especially to participate in politics.
Good.
And one of the big lessons they teach you is don't ever be caught on camera with a drink, because that image can be used with all kinds of different subtexts.
Like they did with, didn't Rachel get caught and they went after her about that?
Probably, but they're like, put your drink behind the person. Like it's serious, and all kinds of, don't wear low cut shirts, because the kinds of things. And they gave some really real life examples of Buffalo, which I don't know if you know Buffalo. There aren't women in politics there. And so
The city of Buffalo?
Yep.
One town over or
Yep.
one city over?
Yep.
There's no women in politics over there.
Not in the city council nor the
Wow.
mayor.
I did not
don't think there's
know
ever
that. That is
been
so
a
close for
woman
us not
mayor.
to know.
Well, they used images against your Versha
Right.
here in
Yes.
legislative
Thank
26.
you. Yep.
That's not cool.
On cards.
No.
Look, I'm all for, look, I know there's this whole thing about equality and women equality. I prefer that women be strong and hold their own. She's blocking the camera. Make sure you press the camera button every once in a while too, until it wakes up.
Her camera's actually frozen right now. I'm trying to fix it.
Oh, is it?
Oh, you haven't been on this whole time? Well, then there you go. We're sorry about that, but Mary is here. That sucks. I mean, that's where I don't like, where, women are held to a different standard than men. In certain ways, it's destructive, because it doesn't allow them to reach their full potential. A lot of women are very, they're going for something, right? And when men don't allow that, or they don't support that, and it happens in the Latino community a lot, since you're on the Latino caucus, I hear somehow, Latino men they like their women to be more subversive or submissive. Sorry, submissive. I'm not that.
I'd be the subversive type.
I'm not that. I prefer my woman to be able. I shouldn't say my woman, right? Is that a thing? Is that a thing? Am I about to get canceled here? No, I prefer. My fiance is a very strong-willed woman, and she can handle her own, and she does not need me. We are better together though. And that's what I was looking for. That was what I said on day one, was I'm looking for someone who has her own thing going for her, and I have my own thing going for me. And we like to meet there and share a life together. But that's not everybody, and that's fine. But, it is sad to hear that women, I don't know if they're actively not doing it. Maybe, are women they don't see themselves in that position, and maybe they don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of data to show that for every man who joins politics, right, that maybe somebody told him once to maybe you should run, or maybe he just decided himself that he should run.
Right.
Women have to be told 8 times, an average of 8 times, like, hey, you should think about running. Hey, you should run.
See, Edna forgets a lot of things I say too. So that might be a thing where women just forget what men say. And I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I know for me, it took maybe 5. When part of my story that I didn't get into was I was an activist and got turned on to politics through the Bernie Sanders campaign. And so I took the organizing skills that I learned, and we just started, having house parties for Bernie, and ended up being the Monroe County campaign for Bernie here. But someone who was a long time, political person in Rochester just kept saying, hey, you guys should start thinking about running yourselves. And
yeah,
no, that's not me. Like, what are you talking about then? But then after a while, you're like, hey, why not me actually?
Why not?
It takes a while.
I'm sure. And Jonathan, being in the South, I mean, how'd you get into politics down there?
A family adopted me when I was in college, kind of like, you just hung out at their house all the time. And he
like police.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He was
I see it now. Makes sense.
First African-American mayor in our city. And he taught me everything about politics, and actually worked for a female client who was city council, very educated, had multiple degrees. And and one of her campaigns, the guy was intimidated by her education. So he started the thing of, I'm more educated than her. She's not that educated. Even though it was not true. He had held half the degrees that she did.
Right.
But that intimidation part that she gave off was what he tried to promote to the public to beat her. But I'm happy to say we crushed him.
Nice. Well, that's fantastic, because Mississippi, is it anywhere near how it is up here in terms of politics down there?
Pretty much the parties are divided the same. I would say I've registered more people to vote through the party in Mississippi than I have here.
It is very tough to get people registered to vote up here.
I don't see any effort being made.
It's been made.
Yeah, we got the Women League of Voters. We got the Latino La Cumbre. You know,
the problem is, once you register them, there has to be sustained engagement to actually get them out to the polls, because it's about behavior change. And maybe people really want to vote, but if it's not like an ingrained behavior, you forget the election day, or you schedule something. You know, it's just they've done kind of maybe targeted campaigns to get new voters out to the polls, and it takes like 8 to 9 touches, whether it's a phone call, a door knock, to really get people excited and to believe that that they can make a difference with their vote. I know it took me.
I guess what I don't see is don't see resources being spent.
Gotcha.
Or
should there be public resources put towards that?
I don't think there has to be. If you have a party that can raise money, and
how about automated voter registration? I mean,
yeah, right there off the bat.
Does that not happen when you get your license? I mean, don't you just click a box?
I moved here and I was surprised at the lack of voter laws and the voter rights. That was shocking to me. There was no early voting. No same day registration. I thought that we were just moving.
That opens up another topic
to this great beacon of liberalism, and I got here and understand that you can't even early vote. I have to go on that day from 9 to 9, even though I may be driving to Syracuse that day. So that part was a little shocking.
Okay, so that's different to hear. That you thought there was going to be a total opening of the voting system here in New York. So that is a topic of discussion in the country, where a lot of states are supposedly limiting how many people can vote or register to vote. Or what is your take on that? Because to me, I don't see a problem with, let's say, showing your ID to vote. Like, that to me just makes sense, because to buy these White Claws, I'm pretty beautiful, but they still ask for my ID.
But I see down south there is an effort to stop people from voting.
Okay.
By closing polling places in African-American communities, or there was just a story on CBS Evening News chronicled a woman who they told her, you needed to bring your driver's license. Well, now we need your original birth certificate. And now we need this X documents. And she was like 86 and had been voting for 20 years, but this year she can't vote because she doesn't have her original birth certificate, which she never had. And so it's just,
that's weird.
Those little things. You're going to kick that one voter off. How many times that one voter in those precincts are you going to try to target and go after? But here, I just think that this past year, the voting by mail, that should be opened up every year. Everyone registered. I mean, as soon as you get your driver's license,
make it as easy as possible.
Register to go. I mean, or as soon as you turn 18, register to vote.
Yeah. I don't see a problem with, I don't want to say forcing people to be registered to vote, but it should be easy. It should be easy to be registered. It should be easy to have a database of showing who's registered to vote, who can vote in a primary, who can vote in a general, whatever it may be. It seems in 2021, it should be easier, right? And there's so many times when, and someone just commented on there that CBS isn't credible news, which, I don't think any news today is credible news, to be honest. Like, I try to watch all of them or portions of all of them just to get some semblance of where the right answer is, because I don't agree with any of them, because they put emotions into it. I don't like that. Like, I want to hear the facts. Just tell me what it is. Let me decide for myself how I should feel about it. And I do agree that there's left leaning and there's right leaning, and there needs to be some politically correcting done to our media as well on all sides. all sides, because they're not doing to me what they should do. And again, this is getting far out beyond city politics, but I think people do agree to some extent that a lot of the independent, I love the independent ones I see on like YouTube. And you always got to double check what they say, because anyone can say anything on YouTube. I can sit here and say anything on here, but I do agree that there's going to be more of those, and I hate to see that a lot of them are being censored, because I don't agree with censoring. I know I'm going to guess that you guys may not agree with that. Speak on it.
Well, what do you mean by being censored?
When I speak about censor, okay, so a lot of the hot topics this year was like the vaccinations, vaccinations, masks, where it originated from. I mean, these are topics that I'm pretty sure everybody has talked about in the past year, and everybody has their own beliefs on everything.
Well, I mean, I think there's some things that are debatable, but then you tell people to drink bleach. I think that is.
Can I just say something? The real world experience. I have a neighbor who had an issue with her foot. Like there was a fungus on her foot, and she poured bleach on it, and it is like a mess now. Yeah. And we were talking about that. I was like, our president, was talking about pouring bleach, drinking bleach. And she's like, actually, now that I think about it, it was about that time that I poured bleach on my foot. And it's like, we, I think, take for granted that people would be able to fact check that and be like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. But when we put our trust in people and, I think they don't necessarily take that into consideration when they make statements like that. It can be really dangerous.
That's pretty crazy. And I try to put in my posts when it has something to do with vaccine, I say, not a doctor. Just put not a doctor. People need to make up their own minds. If you want to put your life at risk and be sick, that's purely up to you. We don't sit there and require people. We don't require men to wear condoms.
Would definitely disagree with you.
I would think that sex has killed more men than COVID.
I have zero basis, nor do you, to make that claim.
Exactly.
It's on YouTube, so it's true. What are you talking about?
There's that news that you were talking
about. That's that news, right? Do not. I am not a doctor, nor am I a news anchor here. But so let's talk about some of the things that are more local to here. Something that was directly related to Miss Lupien here, which I'm sure you want to speak on.
That's Council Member Lupien to you.
My bad. Council Member
Even
Lupien.
though I'm always like getting flustered and being like, Mr. Patterson.
And I have to yell at her to say Councilman. I have to tell people, call me Councilman Peo. I'm like, I don't want to be Council Member.
But you made a good point to me the other day, because I bust on him a lot about it. And he's like, you know what? That's my chosen pronoun. Can you respect that? And I gotta give it to you there.
Did you hear that?
As long as you respect other people's pronouns.
I don't see. That's the thing. I don't care. I don't care what you want to be called, right? I don't care. But some people do care, and meaning they do care how you refer to them. I'm one of the ones that believe that I don't care. You want to be called a freaking unicorn, like Jonathan over here? He loves to be called a unicorn. No,
is that true?
It's everyone's choice.
Everything he gives me is I have a binder for my city council stuff. It's just unicorns and rainbows flying everywhere, right? So I have to keep it out of the camera angle so you don't see it.
Do you put stickers on it?
No, it is embedded, right? It is not stickers. And this is multiple times he's given it to me like that, and he knows exactly what he's doing. But I think it's pretty funny. I don't personally care.
I think Jonathan has one of the funnest jobs on the planet.
Yeah, he gets to sit back and judge us.
Messing with you.
Yeah. That is his normal everyday. We literally get into conversations about different topics all the time. And I started this whole thing off with Jonathan's my legislative assistant, and we hardly agree on many things, but we work really well together. And I like to keep that around me because I want to be able to see the other side of what I believe, so that I can find some type of way to maybe meet in the middle. There's some topics I'm very closed-minded about. I hate to say it. I know I'm not supposed to be as an elected official, but there are some things I'm just closed-minded on. But I think that there's some times where you and I have spoken, and you brought up some good points. I said, okay, run with that. There might be something there that we can agree on, that we can, put forth in legislation and make it happen.
Yeah. And I think it's important, I think it surprises a lot of people that you and I can talk to each other. You know, I can have a conversation with you. We may not agree, we may get heated, but at the end of the day, we can separate our stances from our humanness. And what's frustrating is that's not the same for everyone on council. I mean, there are people on council who will not call me, who won't answer my phone calls, texts, or emails. And we're supposedly politically more aligned. And that's a shame.
Do you think it's because you're white?
I think it's because they're annoyed by me.
Okay, that might be a better answer.
Or frustrated or pissed off, whatever it is. Like,
but
I
still,
don't know.
it's our job.
I can't talk to
I
them.
shouldn't be hitting the table here. I get really I don't want to say emotional about this stuff, but it is your job to listen to all points, right? It is your job to at least hear people out. I still showed up to the ATV dirt bike open forum, and I did not want to. I told Jonathan, I was like, I'm not freaking showing up to that. Are you kidding me? I'm going to listen to these crazy people. And I showed up.
People that were calling human beings a menace and that they should be locked up for.
Oh, no. First of all, not a menace. Animals.
Please don't.
There are people.
I cannot tolerate the dehumanization.
There are people who are dehumanizing. I just messed up that word. Yeah, go ahead and say it again. Dehumanizing the communities around them by destroying young kids, families of color, the livelihoods of kids because they look to them for.
Are we still talking about dirt bikes?
No.
Okay.
No, we're talking about when I called, you know, there's people out there that act like animals, menace to society. There are people who are menaces because they're out there. Look, I don't think that an ATV park is going to solve this problem. I think there will be some people who will show up to that. But if they really cared about freedom, I believe they would have bought a motorcycle, a properly licensed motorcycle.
I think part of, because this is beyond Rochester, right? This is
again, we're going way past Rochester. We might as well just go federal.
This is a movement of people in different cities that are using dirt bikes in an urban setting. One, because there's nowhere else to ride them in these cities. But two, you know, they're doing tricks and like learning how to, you know, maneuver them. And I don't believe that motorcycles offer you that kind of flexibility, let's say. So no one is demonizing ATV riders in the country.
Okay.
And they do the same kind of stuff for the same reasons. There's nowhere in cities for people to ride them. And
for a reason.
I think that allowing people to exercise things that they enjoy, that are keeping kids off of street corners and from going down bad paths and giving them role models and an actual career path.
So you think there's only one way or the other? You're only going to ride motorbikes or you're going to turn to the streets? Go ahead. Sorry.
It's one thing that is giving kids something to do. There are, especially during COVID, there was a complete void of activities for kids. And so this is something that, you know, they've told us themselves, you know, is saving them, is giving them community, is giving them a sense of purpose. And lots of people get purpose and community from lots of different things. This is one thing that they found that they have a passion around. And so I don't think, one, it makes sense to take it away. Two, it will work, because when you try and take away someone's passion, they're not just going to say, well, okay, I guess I won't do it anymore. They're going to continue because it's something that they're excited about. And so I think it's just human nature to find, okay, how can we satisfy what they want to do in the context of what works for everyone else? And I think a dirt bike park checks that box.
So it seems like that might open up a door for a lot of other ways that young kids turn to alternative freedoms that make them not feel so lonely, right? That opens the door for drug use, sexual abuse, so many other things.
Those are negative expressions.
But this is an illegal expression, right? ATVs and dirt bikes are illegal on our streets. But where I found agreement in, and I did state this to them, was there is nothing stopping them from collecting their money together and opening up their dirt park. Or if Jonathan's grandmother was around here, she would buy it for them. And
well, I think one of
she gave stuff away when she worked. What was it? A convenience store, right?
Convenience store. thing I heard was like, go to the county, or one thing that stuck out to me that I thought about the other day, you know, why don't you just do this in the county? Or there's that park over there. A lot of people from the city haven't been invited to those county parks and things. I remember when my godson Khaleesi's school was going to start doing urban to suburban, I said, I want to go to the school board meeting just to hear some of the arguments. And I was just blown away. And even with the kids at his school, he said they started calling him nicknames of urban to suburban kids, or this or that. So I don't think a lot of people from the city feel comfortable or know of places they can go to the county because they haven't always been welcomed in the county. So if any park was going to be built, I know it would have to be somewhere close or in the city, if it was going to be successful.
I hear there's a pretty big park in the south that we could take a look at putting it into. I would agree. I can see how they can feel like outsiders if we say, hey, go to the county, go out further out. But at the same time, it also feels as if maybe they also created a bigger divide when we start talking about white people are racist, or white people are this, that, and the other, when most of them are out in the county doing the exact same thing, that these kids are doing in our city, meaning riding dirt bikes and ATVs. But it's accepted out there, right? It's accepted out in like Kendall, let's say. I got a friend that lives out there, and I don't know how many ATVs she owns, but there's nobody stopping them from riding them down these dirt roads or side roads or anything like that. But I've never seen them going down main roads doing wheelies down the main road, stopping traffic, stopping red lights. I never seen that. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I feel if they would have not done that ridiculousness, the menacing behaviors, there wouldn't be as much backlash about it. If it wasn't so in your face with it, then people would have been like, all right, they're just having some fun. Let them ride their dirt bikes. I don't think it would have been as crazy. People wouldn't have been as crazy about it, especially since we have back roads that they could have used. We got train tracks that are no longer in use. I can't believe they're not using those. Well, I don't want to give them a way out here.
There's two things I think that the dirt bike issue kind of aggravates. One is, the safety in terms of, doing wheelies and things in traffic and on pedestrian paths where people aren't expecting to see them.
Right.
But then there's the noise. And the noise isn't just from these dirt bikes. It's also from registered, licensed motorcycles.
And the cars.
And the cars, and so I feel like it's a vortex of issues here where they're getting demonized, but it's beyond dirt bikes as well. And, I get the noise issue. People at Cobbs Hill are going crazy because motorcycles are going up and down and, backfiring and revving their engines, and they're just pulling their hair out. And human problems are the hardest to fix because human behavior is different for every person. And what are you going to do? Stand out there and talk to every single person? But then, the solutions we come up with invariably don't address everyone. And so they're really difficult. And it seems like the easy answer is, well, just over police the crap out of it. But that creates other issues. And it's also not very efficient or effective because you'd have to have like a military style presence in order to really make a difference.
I don't know. I mean, this does kind of lead to the next topic of conversation I wanted to hit on because, obviously a lot of cities are seeing an uptick in homicides, shootings, some really heavy duty crime in our country. And people are really terrified for their lives and they should be, because it is scary out there. And when you're sitting in your living room and a gunshot comes through your wall, or your child is asleep and there's a bullet hole above their bed. Like, these are scary things that people in our city are dealing with today, and many cities are dealing with. And, obviously I think I would be on a different side of this one than most people that, either you and Jonathan, where we don't have enough police to deal with the number of calls that we're getting, in my opinion. I know that, you disagree, but
I don't disagree.
Okay.
The way you stated it.
Hold on. Everyone needs to listen to this. Go.
We don't have enough to deal with the calls we're getting.
Right.
But it depends. Like the issue is, are police the right person to respond to that call? And are we spending as much on preventing these calls from being placed as we are in dealing with them after the fact?
This is where I do agree, where there is a connection there where I can come to grips with what you're trying to say. And I think, Jonathan, you might actually be on the same level, same realm there.
What I keep thinking about is, I agree with you on the calls. We have to figure out 211, 311, and 911, because there are calls going to 911 that shouldn't be. I like my last call about a dog in my yard and me wanting animal control. And they said, well, you need to call 911. That should not go to 911.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I also think of a study the Justice Department did in 2015. And one main thing they came back and pointed to was the fact that you need to have trust and accountability within your police departments. And if you don't have that trust with the public in your police department, or the accountability of the officers in your police department, you're going to continue to have issues. And that was 2015. And look where we're at today. And if you look at our city government, even our county government, going door to door and talking to people during this campaign, they do not have trust in our government. And that all started last year, I think.
Well, isn't that crazy that we can go door to door when it's election time? But
well, some people don't want you to, and you keep a distance.
Yeah.
I'm not as usual in the doorway, a back away, or instead of the typical door hangers, now they're actual door hangers, so you can hang them and leave. You're not as, it hasn't been accessible. And then all of the campaigning, Saturday night was the first form that was in person out of the entire campaign. And so that was a little different as well.
It's got to be pretty crazy for you right now to be running during these times, man.
It is crazy.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. But I will say, you know, in terms of the violence, I'm in it. I am, you know, where I'm situated in my house, there have been stray bullets that have hit people in the knee, that have hit people's, that have gone through a convenience store window and ended up, you know, in the, through the wall of a child's bedroom with the bullet sitting on the bed that's been across the street from me. I worry, like if my daughter falls asleep on the couch, like I make her get up and go upstairs because I'm terrified she's going to get hit by a bullet. Like I'm not one of these that is like living in the Browncroft neighborhood removed from it. Like I'm in it, but I believe that spending the resources and the right response is going to keep me safer than sticking more police on the street. My corner, there's been a car, a police car for the last month because after the last, you know, shooting, they just stuck somebody there. So, okay, great. My corner may not see activity, but while they've been sitting there, there's been a shooting on the street, the same block, street over, and it hasn't changed Beechwood at all, other than there's been no incidents on my corner.
Just displaced it.
It displaced it. And so that's what police do. They deter crime in very specific areas, but it doesn't go away because it just moves, because we're not dealing with the underlying issues that are causing the crime. And it's not just that people are bad people. Like there aren't more bad people since COVID than there were before, but there are people that have less, that are unemployed. There are kids that are not in school that don't have that positive interaction with adults. There are, you know, economic insecurity. Medical journal after medical journal article shows the connection between economic insecurity and a lack of, you know, social emotional support and the impact it has on violence. And so to continue to spend on enforcement without spending at least equal amounts on prevention, to me, is just the definition of insanity. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
expecting different results.
I think I don't think you went far enough with how you get to the point where it's the underlying issue. So we're talking about economic insecurity. We're talking about people who aren't making even enough money, right?
I will say that in one of the articles that I read that did a in-depth analysis of all the different programs and then followed people to show how many people were involved in violence as an adult, Nurse and Family Partnership had 80% success rate. It was higher than everything else. And if you think about it, you know, I held a violence prevention forum at the end of May, which brought in the chief operating officer of Advanced Peace, which is one of the models that we're hoping to to set up in Rochester. And it was founded in Richmond, California. They had the highest murder rate in the state. They had the 5th highest in the country. And after implementing advanced peace, they dropped their violence from at 82% over 10 years. So the data is remarkable, and where it has been implemented, they've seen similar results. And their model is focused on building relationship with the 1% of the population. And this is true in Rochester. I've talked with our police department about it. It's relatively true in all cities that 1% of the population is committing 90% of the gun violence. And so you target resources and supports on those very few people. If you think about Rochester, that's 200 people that are involved in 90% of the gun violence issues.
What are they doing then? What is it specifically that they're doing that has changed the way that city is looking?
Right. And so they have to build trust with the people that are on the corner, and so they do that with credible messengers, guys who've been through it. And
like Pathways to Peace, which we do have.
Pathways to Peace is another model of targeted intervention.
And My Brother's Keeper.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it seems as though what I would say for many people is that there's these social programs are there. Are they not being utilized? What is happening here?
So Pathways has been through some iterations, and especially during COVID, they didn't have those credible messengers out on the streets. And I think that they went away from the credible messenger model a little bit, and we're just kind of doing events, like they show up at events where they thought, like basketball games or whatever, baseball games, football games, where they thought there might be an issue. But this is really relationship, like deep relationship. Like these guys are available 24/7. Whenever they're checking up on you every day, making sure that somebody cares about you. And what his name is Khalid Mutaki, the COO, said that it takes them like 6 months to build a relationship with these guys, because they don't believe that you're actually there to for their own benefit and not for some other side reason.
Right.
And so it takes them a while to build a relationship, but once they do, they're reaching the most disconnected, mostly youth in our community, and they're not connected to any other part of the system except for the criminal justice system.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's a far off model, which I believe Jonathan did. I mean, I know Jonathan personally, and you've built that relationship with Khalees to the point where you are his dad. Like you are a family member at that point. He is not just someone you're mentoring, but you are in a life family with him at this point. So do you think that, how far could that have gone? Meaning if you weren't there, like Khalees could have a totally different life.
Well, now that I know him, I know how strong he is.
Good.
So I would, maybe things would have been harder, but he'd still, I think, would turn out the same. He has some drive. I mean, he was 8 and asking me what a resume was or how we could do that.
That's amazing.
But speaking of what you're saying, building that trust with people. Back in my hometown of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, the police and some pastors came out and said, we're going to have there was high crime, high shootings. We're going to have a gang summit. And everybody made fun of it. The media trashed it, of this gang summit. It was a neutral place. Everybody was going to meet, and they were going to come together, and they were going to start building those relationships. It's going to have the police, the gang leaders there, some clergy was there, some concerned members of the community, and they came together and for about 4 hours sat and talked through some issues. And within just a couple months of that, we saw, crime drop by about 10-15%, because we were starting to build relationships with them of, okay, what are your problems that you're having with each other? Because you're only killing each other.
But do we need to defund police for that?
So here's the thing. I do, like, before we go there, there's more to the model than just what I said. They also have employment opportunities. They give them stipends for hitting certain milestones so that they can actually start to lift themselves up.
They're motivating them the way they want to be motivated.
And then, don't we all?
Yeah, absolutely.
They also have
Incentivize it.
transformative travel. And so they take these cohorts in different places, and they have some amount of say in it. When they go out of the country, they make sure that they pair rival gang members together, so that they start to see them, oh, you like this sports team? Well, I do too. And they start to see them as the same person instead of just the other side. So when they get back home, there's some sort of understanding going on, and that decreases crime too. But also getting them out of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That for the first time, some of them for the first time in their lives,
Yep.
they don't have to look over their shoulder,
Right.
and they can breathe. And when you're constantly looking over your shoulder in survival mode, you don't get to break out and think of another way of living. And, the guy in the forum told this story that, he called him the OG. He was 24 years old. So he's like the old guy in this gang. He wanted to go to Disneyland. And so they took him all to Disneyland, and he comes over and with Mickey Mouse ears on his head said, "This is the best day of my life. I want to bring my kids here." And they turn these young men, not just that they're not involved in violence, but they're actively peacemakers, and they are employed through the program, reaching out to other youth. So it's incredibly impactful. And the reason why we need to reallocate funding is because there just isn't enough money, and there never was. We spend, if you look at the trajectory from, I'm trying to remember my numbers here. I'm not going to try.
It's okay.
I think it might be from 2001. We have spent 78% more on policing and like 9% less on schools. And you can see the graph where the police funding just keeps going up and up and up. And the funding for schools, the funding for, Department of Recreation and Human Services, youth services, libraries is going down. And so
Is this Rochester you're speaking about?
Yes.
Yep.
Because I feel like we've given a lot of money to Dries, no?
No.
But at what point, why can't, if we're talking about building trust with the police, why aren't we funding more police officers that are those community resources? You're shaking your head. No, I love the idea of people from the community becoming the enforcers in that community, saying, look, this isn't right. I'm going to step up, and I'm going to be that guy or gal that I want to be, who connects with those in my community in a way that a police officer from the suburbs would not.
So we have some of those.
Right.
And they are being, they are inside of a broken system, trying to do good, and it's very difficult. They have ideas of how to make it better. They're dismissed. They're not promoted because they don't have that, like that mentality that a lot of others do, of that warrior mentality. And
maybe they need to see it. Maybe we need to see it. Maybe that needs to be like the new version of Pathways to Peace or something, where it needs, in my opinion, I can see a lot of the new police officers coming in being exactly that, and then still having enforcers of the law, where all right, we do need to send these guys in because it is bad. It's someone's shooting guns, or they're just putting people's lives in danger. But to me, it feels as though taking money from the police to put into programs that are already been in place for years, a number of years, and you're shaking your head no. But
that's not what we're talking about.
But I believe that there could be a good model of police social work where we can now talk about reforming the police department to become more of community based.
But why? That's not their job. It's
not their job until it becomes their job.
But why would we? Why would we take people whose job it is to respond to violent crime and turn them into social workers? To me, that doesn't make sense.
No, it's a new kids coming up.
But what I'm saying is the right response for the right incident, and police have a very specific job, and we have just talk about scope creep. We have just thrown so much at them.
Absolutely.
They are responding to kids who don't want to go to school. They're responding to
neighbors who
auto vehicle accidents.
Yeah.
They're responding to mental health crises.
I agree. I agree that we don't need them for that, but I also agree that there sometimes needs to be an enforcer to come around and knock on that door of the neighbor and say, look, stop shooting off fireworks at 11 o'clock at night because kids got to go to school and people got to go to work, and stop running your engines during the day because you're working on ATVs and dirt bikes here because your neighbor has to go to work tomorrow and they work from home. But
then what happens when the police go away?
Well, what happens when someone that's not dressed like a police officer shows up? They don't listen to them.
They don't. But that's where a relationship comes in. And I think that, this is kind of outside of the scope of an immediate response. But when you build connection within your neighborhoods, then you start to not just see your place as the place where you are, but you start to see yourself as part of a community and it matters to you whether your neighbor is bothered by your fireworks. But the police coming and telling you to stop, they're just going to do it when they go away. The same with the noise complaints. And so it's not effective. But what I'm saying is, when we reallocate responsibilities from the police, why would we continue to fund them at the same level when we are taking those jobs and giving them to other places, other entities that are better able to respond?
Because I believe these people need enforcement capabilities. That's the difference.
Nobody's taking that away. It's just,
well, it can't be if it's not under law enforcement. It can't enforce it.
Listen.
You listen.
No, you listen. That's not what I'm saying. Nobody is saying.
But other people are thinking that. I'm sure there's people watching.
Let me finish. What I think a majority of people mean when they say defund, is like, think about de-escalate.
Yeah,
You're not talking about getting rid of it. You're talking about minimizing it.
Yeah, we get it.
And the main function of police is to respond to Part 1 crimes, which are the very serious and violent crimes. And they are a very small subsection of the crimes that they respond to. And one of the questions that I asked during the budget hearing is, what's the breakdown of what police, how they spend their time? Because we see the numbers.
It's one of your questions.
Right. That's what I said.
You made it like it was somebody else's question.
No, I said one of the questions that I asked.
Okay, continue.
Whatever. It was my question.
They spend their time enforcing law. To me, that was my answer. I wanted to say, but I didn't say it.
Is it responding to property crimes to write a report? Does it need to be police that do that? Is it 10 officers for a man who's showing his genitalia on Empire Boulevard, like happened 2 days ago? Can we more wisely spend their time and transfer out responsibilities that belong with other people? And then they can focus on what we typically think of when we want to call, like we want to have police on the other end of the line when something bad is going down.
Well, we got 3 minutes left here.
What I was thinking of is, with that noise complaint or that car going off, or if you leave your trash bin out on the wrong day, they still send someone around that city code. So should we send a police officer to come tell you to move your trash can? I think we need to look at what
or to inspect your chicken coop.
Yeah.
I mean, we can agree that there's some ridiculous stuff out there that people are
more powerful neighborhood service centers.
I agree.
Who are actually working on strategic plans that are dated now of our needs. I think that you could pull some of those responsibilities, but I've talked to some police as well who said, well, if you pull away some of those calls, it's not going to be able to justify us getting the resources and funds that we need to maintain what we have. But one last thing, when you say, do we spend enough on dryers, or the Department of
Dryers.
Dryers. Department of Recreation and Human Services. It just hits me as just to hear when someone at the city said, we can't afford a park.
Yeah.
And that hits me, that we can't afford a park, but we can afford all of these other things. And I think if we're reactive to police in this
Absolutely.
city, and we're not proactive. If we get all those kids a park or something to do, or a summer job, even with the kids at Leadership, I've been volunteering with them for years, and I noticed they were screaming at one kid across the street from a project we were working on, and they were trying to get that kid really bad to come over and work with us. And I finally said, what's the deal with that kid that won't come over here and volunteer with us? And they said, well, he's in some gangs and some violence, and we need to get him over here. So if we had all those kids employed working on projects, they know which kids need to be pulled into the fold.
Absolutely.
And I think that we need to double our efforts when we come to employing students across the city, or working on any of those youth programs. Yes, they may have been around here a long time, and yes, they may not be doing what the desired thing that we want them to do right now, but that may be because we're not funding them.
Well, it seems like the biggest go-to response with that I've heard is, well, we don't have as many programs as the suburbs does. And to me, that is complete nonsense. We have a ton of programs, way more than the suburb has. We have, like you said, where we're employing the youth. We're also paying for these kids to work in private organizations.
But it used to be year long, and now it's only in summer.
It should absolutely be year long.
2 years ago, they lost $300,000 in funding. And it's just the trend that these things get, at the county level, my God, like the social services, like the hoops that the Republicans jump through to get people to like get cut off from those services. Like if we funded all of those things that people need to have a successful life, our violence would be so low. And we just don't approach it that way. Okay.
So you brought up the city budget here, and I got the okay to go over a little bit here. So I'm gonna fully take that because I think there's a good conversation. You brought up the budget and where money is being spent. What are your thoughts on the city's budget? Are you okay with it? Because in my opinion, I believe everyone should believe the same thing. The city budget shows where your priorities are as a city. And I don't think that this budget shows a priority that speaks to a lot of people. And I think you and I might see in a different way.
Yeah,
because it seems like you're chomping at the bit for agreeing on a different way. But
right.
And Jonathan, you can speak to what because I know you've looked at the budget because I mean you're my legislative aide and you get more into the details for me, which is fantastic, and I love that. And you see things differently than I do, and that's what I really love about having a legislative aide that is completely different minded than me. So what are your thoughts about where you see the budget? What does it say about Rochester? We don't want to go too far over, but if you can change one thing about the budget, what would it be? And you cannot say taking more funding away from police.
Why can't I say that?
Because that's off the table.
No, it's not. I would like to see an extra $5 million.
Oh my God! Do you know what money is?
I do, and it's
how much $5 million is?
Vacant positions that are not currently filled, so it won't actually touch the way things are. But it would.
We are saying we don't have enough police officers already.
I'm not saying that.
Oh my God, Charlotte is definitely saying it. Maplewood is definitely saying it. Lyle Avenue is definitely saying it.
Well, then let's figure out what they're spending their time on and adjust appropriately.
They're spending their time on all the freaking people getting shot. All the shootings happening in the city.
There's so much more that they spend their time on that police should not be doing.
I know.
And they don't want to do it either.
I'm positive that the police don't want to do a lot of these BS calls, right? Where they don't want to show up to some dude showing his dingling on Empire. Ain't nobody want to show up to that.
That's a mental health issue.
That is a mental health issue, right? And we did fund the PIC team. And I believe that they got...
Not nearly enough.
Okay, so more funding for them, which I agree because there have been times when they say, well, we didn't have anybody that can respond to it.
Yeah. So we need more funding for the PIC team,
Mm-hmm.
Expanded hours for the R centers and libraries for youth.
Are libraries being used anymore? Libraries?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Oh
so
my
because
goodness,
I...
so much.
Mhm.
All right, so...
Actually increased this past year.
But it's
from
not
what was predicted.
necessarily for reading.
Right.
They're a center for all kinds of other things.
And their online presence has gotten better. Just like RTS has changed up quite a bit. I feel like there's a lot of things that we have done in the city that people just don't know about. And our city has a very bad problem with getting that information out. People didn't know how to call a PIC team for a long time. Like that's huge. That's a problem.
211. Call
211. Right. 211. Call a PIC team. If it's something that's not an emergency, but it's a mental health
and
issue.
It's a separate people think there's a long waiting line for 211, and there is for some things, but you get asked immediately if it's a behavioral health crisis, and you press 1 and you're connected right away.
Right. So if there's some idiot being drunk at the bus stop, call 211. A police officer doesn't need to show up to that, nor do they want
Actually, a police officer would show up to that right now.
Because, right. It shouldn't. I agree with you.
Because the PIC team needs to expand to family trouble and wellness checks.
I completely agree with you on that. And see, this is where this type of podcast is needed, or I feel it's needed, is because there are agreements to be had when it comes to all sides of the equation. Because I'm sitting here saying I don't want any funding taken away from the police. I think there's police reform that should be had. I believe that there are people coming up, new police officers that could be in those positions of, showing up to the neighborhood service centers, showing up to those issues that the neighborhoods have. Hey, this business over here keeps blocking my driveway in with their trucks.
That doesn't need to be police, though.
No, but it needs enforcement, right? We don't have any city code enforcers.
I know that's another thing that needs money, as well as affordable housing.
Right, not from the police department. Affordable housing, I agree with, but we need to stop putting people into these big projects of a building. We need to, 31% home ownership in our city, Jonathan? Because I know this is something that you speak on.
Yes, 31% home ownership, and I heard the number of somewhere around. It costs the developers and tax breaks around $200,000 for these one apartments. When we have so many homes that we can rehab and get people into,
right?
And I even had a friend who took $5,000 to the auction. She was going to buy a home and was outbid every time by a developer. I believe that if you're going to live in that home, you should have first rights.
Absolutely, I agree. I think because they only allocate a certain number of them, right? They only allocate like 50 of the homes that they're going to auction off to
homeowners,
which is sad. It should be automatically all of them, to be honest. I think,
mean, if you ask me, find every
what are we gonna do?
property that's owned by a out of state, out of country absentee landlord, eminent domain them and give them to our residents.
Oh my goodness, that's opening up a door that I don't think I would like to go down, because there are, a lot of times people look in other states because there's more opportunities there than in their area.
I don't believe that housing is a commodity that should be invested in like a business. These are people's homes.
I will,
and then take care of it. If you're gonna be a property owner, that has to be your responsibility.
Next door to me, the guy owns, I think he's in California. No, he's in Buffalo now, but it was Australia, California, now Buffalo. And I said, we want to buy this house as a neighborhood. And he goes, we're buying hold kind of people. That means that they don't do a thing to it, and they hold it until it's worth more money. And that's a cancer in our neighborhood.
And then there are others homeowners, like the one close to my house, who is a good homeowner or renter, and could not get someone out of his house. So we need to look at both sides and evaluate that.
And that's the issue that I know you and I hear a lot, because there are a lot of bad tenants as well as bad landlords. And we should definitely hold landlords accountable if they're being shitty landlords. But there's nothing.
Oh, hell, you can curse on this? I didn't know.
Yeah. So it's the 1/4 of the White Claw I had. That's what it is. Now it seems as if we hold our landlords more accountable than the renters. And I'm not going to even go down. This is going to be a whole nother topic another day.
Disagree with
I know you disagree. And this is, again, another area where we just...
Have you seen some of these homes?
Some, though. We're talking some.
No,
you know how many
not.
terrible renters there are?
Not in Browncroft and North Winton, but all over Beechwood.
You know how many terrible renters there are in the city? Way more terrible renters than terrible landlords.
Where's your data?
That's totally based off of what I've seen in the news.
Yeah, because they're always talking about
the mainstream media.
They're
all right,
always talking about terrible landlords in the news. Oh my gosh.
There's help on both sides. I feel we need to help both sides.
Both sides has been ruined.
It is bad. It is bad.
You have a broken system when you have.
No, I mean like the term both sides.
Both sides?
Yeah, ever since Charlottesville, I can't hear it.
Oh my God.
But when you have a government that looks at the guy who had like 180 plus violations on one apartment building.
Oh yeah.
And then his apartment building on Park Ave had 0. I mean, that's calculated as a landlord. You know which money you're putting your building into.
Goodman Plaza is a shithole. Now that I know I can curse. Yeah. But the same guy owns a plaza in Irondequoit, and it's beautiful. People think that they can come in and profit off the city and keep our people in squalor, and it's a crime.
But we definitely need more code enforcers.
Yeah, hell yeah, we need more code enforcers. That's crazy how much what we have.
The one thing we can agree on.
I feel we agree on other things. It's just in different ways.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna go too far ahead, because I believe that an hour is a pretty good time thing, and I appreciate you both coming on, Council Member Mary Lupien and running for City Council person Jonathan Harden there. So I appreciate you both coming on.
When
very
is the
first.
Election?
Oh, June right
22nd.
now. You can
Right
vote. How you can vote right now.
Early
We have early voting.
June 22nd.
June 22nd is the actual day that I like to vote.
And our budget, we're voting on the budget tomorrow. It's
voting on the budget
6:30.
tomorrow and the ATV legislation
We are. I have some words.
tomorrow. So you always have words. We're always waiting for Miss Mary.
And they
to
always
think.
get interrupted by Mr. Patterson.
All right. I appreciate everybody that's watching. You could have been anywhere else. You're here today. If anyone knows Kanye West, please tell him I'm looking for him. And I would love to have him on the show. That's my ultimate goal, is to have Kanye West and John Leguizamo on the show.
John Leguizamo.
Yeah, John Leguizamo. I love John Leguizamo. I love Kanye well. Yeah. Oh my God. I just watched that movie last year. It was the first time I ever seen it, which is crazy. But I appreciate you both coming on. I appreciate everyone spending time with us today. And I look forward to being here every week and, just having a legitimate human conversation. So thank you.
All right.
Play that music.